Hi everyone, and welcome to the You Are the Magic chat series. I'm your host, Kylie James. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land which we live and pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. We acknowledge that both Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people continue to live in spiritual and sacred relationships with this country. So today's episode is with one of my favorite people who I've recently connected with on a different level to who I knew before, Leina Broughton. Welcome, Leina.
Hi. Hi, Kylie. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have our conversation today. And I know that there's others out there that are super interested to hear from you and hear how you're going and what you're up to as well. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here. I'm excited to chat. I know we've had many chats already online, so it's good to bring it into this space.
Yeah, absolutely. So before, I guess there's going to be some people out there who may not know you. So I'll give a little bit of a spiel and then I'll let you extend from there. So you discovered your calling was a fashion designer, and you wanted to do that rather than foreign affairs. And so at 17, you're accepted into Wellington Polytechnic?
Polytechnic, yeah,
Polytechnic?
like TAFE.
Yeah, okay. And then after starting your course, you watched your hands make things as though you had been a pattern maker and seamstress for the whole of your life. You made the big leap moving countries, so you moved from Wellington to Darlinghurst in Sydney, and then you discovered that there was just a whole new world out there. So then in 2010, you started your own fashion label, and that's where I came to know you. Um, but then fast forward, we've hit 2022, 11 years later, and you've said, you know what? It's time to do something a little bit different. I'm going to step out of fashion and I'm going to, jump into a whole new career. And then here we are. Here we are. You're a mum. You've got a beautiful son, and you've just had so many experiences and magical moments in your life. And oh gosh, I'm just looking forward to hearing all about them. So, what a journey so far.
Yeah, no, it has, and it's really nice to hear that. So thank you. That was a long
Yeah,
introduction.
yeah. So, can tell us a little bit more about what life is like being leaner and not just over the 11, the 11 or 20, 30 years, but also what life is going to be like as well too for you.
Yeah, so I started the label in 2010, and I've always like loved fashion, and my
Yeah.
mum taught me to sew when I was about 10 years old, and it sort of, it just sort of led on from there, and I've always been creating, and I think the main bit about fashion that I love fabrics, and I love taking a flat piece of fabric and being
Yeah.
able to turn it into something that molds the body beautifully. So
Yeah.
it's always been a real passion project. But, when I started the label, I had previous to that, I'd been working with Country Road on their sister brand Trenery. And
Yes.
I was part of the startup team there. But I was like, oh, I just wanted to be involved in more parts,
Yeah.
that thing of, I'd always sort of worked for myself consulting and stuff previous to that
Yeah.
within fashion. And then to work in a company, and Country Road was amazing. I absolutely loved my time there, but they sort of wanted me to sit on one seat. And I've got that brain where it's like I wanted to be in like part of
Yeah.
all aspects of the
Yeah.
business. So I was like,
Yeah.
I have to go and do my own thing.
Yeah.
I think I've always had that dream big thing. So,
Yeah.
when I was in Wellington, and I actually had started a little label when I was in Wellington, and it was going quite well. The name was Pure Platinum, and I moved to Sydney. This is such a funny story. Moved to Sydney, and there was a strip club in Sydney called Pure
Pure
Platinum.
platinum. Oh no.
And I was like, oh,
Uh-oh.
it's just one of those names that you come up with when you're 17, right?
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
but when I moved from Wellington to Sydney, it was because, well, I had the option of becoming a big fish in a small pond in Wellington, or I could dive right into a big pond and start off as a small fish, but have the opportunity to grow much
Mm.
bigger in a bigger
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
And, same as when I left Country Road, like I didn't leave to just start a little label. I left and I very specifically had the dream of, I'm going to take Country Road on.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
want to build a
Wow.
fashion brand that can be a direct competitor to Country Road.
That's
And
awesome. That's
yeah,
amazing.
so it's always had that really big dream visioning.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and the label has been an incredible journey. Like it's
Yeah.
been, I have so many incredible memories, and I kind of feel like I grew up in that brand
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but then yeah, that day came and I knew it was time. Like I got the calling and intuition, universe calling and said,
Yeah.
it's time to make a change. And I also wanted to make that change when I could, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And I don't think
Yes.
that
Yes.
there's any limitations on age as to when you can make change. But for me, I'd been so immersed in the business. The business took off, like started to go to the next level when my son was born.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
for all of those early ages, I was just in the business and I hadn't taken that time to be a mum. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I was, but it's different when you've got such a big business that's sort of
Yes.
sitting part of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so then last year I made the decision that I wanted to exit the business, and I had a business partner as well, and so
Yeah.
she bought me out of the company,
Yeah.
uh, and I literally left, and then I just went into complete shock because I had this vision of what it was
Yep.
going to be
Yep.
like, and then I left the business and realized that my entire identity was
Yep.
attached to this business. And
Yes.
I know you went
Yes.
through very similar stuff when you
Yes. Yes. This is all resonating totally with me. Yep. Yep.
And it
Yep.
was just that shock and grief.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I wasn't prepared for that. It actually really surprised me. Like I really, what we had built in the team within the business, but also the community with customers, amazing customers. And then to have my life of fabric and fashion not be
Yes.
there with me every day. Oh,
Yes.
it was a real wake up call to me. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad that I did it because I think that if you'd given it 5 more years, I don't know that I would have been able to differentiate between myself
Yes.
and the business.
Look, I totally hear you. I think, when I look back on my 20-year career, obviously a very different career to yours, but my identity was wrapped up in work so much. And I wasn't a mum. I didn't have I didn't have Ruby, my puppy. I was just Kylie who went to work every single day. And I just remember one day my best friend died and she left this massive legacy.
Mm.
And she said to me, sorry, I looked at and looked everything and went, what's your legacy, Kylie? Like, what are you going to leave? And all I could think of was Kylie worked hard. And I
Oh,
thought, that's
do you
not the
know what
legacy I want to leave.
a call? That's a huge
Yeah, it's huge. But
one.
that took a while to kind of hit as well. And I thought, hang on a sec. All right, I've got to change something up. What do I want to do? And then I went on a journey of trying to figure things out. But similar to you, it's not until you get there on the day and the next day you're like, oh, I don't have to get up. I don't have to get dressed for work. Oh, it's like this massive realization
Yeah.
and it just hits you like a ton of bricks. And it's
Yeah,
like,
I think that mine
whoa,
came, like I'm sure you're the same, but it came in waves as well. Like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
think, oh, I'm all good, I've made the right decision, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and this is happening. And then it's like,
yeah.
next
Yes.
step, what have I done? What have I done? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, for me, the coping mechanism was to just throw myself into everything.
yeah,
My partner and I went off traveling and we'd been on heaps. I think we've been away, 9 or 10 times in the
yeah,
8 months I've been, or actually 10 months I've been away from work.
yeah,
Um, so went off traveling, did that stuff, taken my son away, spent time with him. But, I started writing, I was doing French
yeah,
classes,
yeah,
blogging, mentoring, speaking, facilitating,
yeah,
just
yeah.
filling every single crack
Yes.
possible
Yep.
in
Yep.
order to be able to actually, I actually think it's a process to which you need to do when you've got a
Mm.
very fast, very busy brain that's connected to something. It's like you have to feed it in order for that brain to actually learn and train itself how to slow down.
Yeah. 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 And we were talking about this before, is to unlearn some
Oh,
of the
yeah,
things that we've learned. Like,
huge, huge
and
lesson.
it's, yeah, you've got to feed it for then it to go, oh, hang on, this is not what I need anymore.
Yeah. And I
Um,
think it's, you know, and like in the obviously in the spirit of what your Facebook group and about what your
yeah,
conversations are about, but
yeah,
that midlife point when you're actually able to kind of go, okay, this is what I've achieved so far. I'm really happy with all of that. This all looks awesome. But it's like, but what do I want it to look like next?
mm,
And I think it's
yes,
that when you can make that conscious decision, then all of a sudden you're starting to have a life by design
yes,
instead of
absolutely,
like a life by habit.
yes, yeah, absolutely,
And I
yeah,
think in order to be able to really work out what that is, A, you've got to try heaps of stuff
yep,
and get, you know, and I know you've gone on the same journey as well with the coaching and the different
yeah,
aspects of business
yeah,
and your new venture as well with Ruby HR.
yeah.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, thank you. I'm super excited about that.
Oh, I think it's amazing. I think it's,
Yeah,
yeah, huge potential there.
yeah, yeah,
But I think it's really you've got to be able to take that time to try stuff and go, okay, when I'm making these decisions about what I want the future to look like, am I doing it with really true intention of what lights me up? Or am I doing what I know I'm good at?
yeah.
And they're not always, you know, I
The
always talk
same.
about that whole, you've got that zone of genius, right? But it's like, but where's that zone of happiness as
Yeah,
well?
yeah,
And it's kind of going,
yeah,
okay, well, I need to, just because I've done something for 20 years, you
yes,
know, whatever the time, it
yeah.
doesn't mean that that has to be a fait accompli of what I do for the rest of time.
That's right. Or it can be the skill that you bring, but you'll do it in a different way, and you'll
Oh,
use it in a different way. Because, I think, what you're doing with Made It, you're still being able to be creative, and, it's just a different way. You're actually just expressing that creativity in a different way, which I think is a really beautiful journey to go on.
I think the creativity of Made It is really different. It's a totally different type of creativity. I actually think that with Made It, because, and for those of you that don't know Made It,
Yes.
it's
Sorry. Yep.
a home of Australian handmade arts and crafts, but we're
Yeah.
essentially like an Australian version of Etsy. And
Yeah.
Etsy in the earlier days, you know, when it had more handmade artisans, I was thinking this morning, I was like, it's like the original Byron Bay, right? Like
Oh,
before
yeah,
it got
yeah,
taken over.
yeah.
But I'm
So
like,
good.
we've got 1,500 incredible creatives on there, but the business for me that I'm doing there is more about supporting other creatives.
Yeah.
And I've actually found that it's my business mentoring and marketing and advertising background that I'm able to share with the community to help them grow their businesses.
Yeah.
And, you know, my vision, I've got this dream of like having all of these artists who've been able to, like, their businesses have taken off, they're able to have it at the level that they want to have in order to have a creative life, but they say, but I kicked off, like, my business was launched on Made It.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
interesting. I would say that for me, Made It is probably more about my mentoring and business
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
side, and from a creative side, you know, they're the creatives.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's different. I still find like I'm still at the moment going to art classes, choosing
Oh,
different
nice.
because I'm still finding my creative
Yeah.
core.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
still yet to be discovered again.
Yeah. Yeah. Just in a different way. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. I just love how you dream big. I know there's that cliche saying, dream big, but to actually see someone do it and see them follow through, it's just incredible, because it really does show you that there's limitless possibilities out there. There's just, the world's your oyster if you focus, and it's hard work. You can't just wave a magic wand and boom, it's all working for you, but yeah, you can
Me
also
with
make it
dream
fun.
Yeah, for me, dreaming big though is actually a tool in order for you to actually, like, it's actually a productivity tool for me.
Yeah. Okay.
So what I find is that, because on the study of the mind and how it works,
Yeah.
right? If you have your goal set here, right? This is your really dream big goal.
Yeah.
What your mind and your conscious mind does is it goes, okay, well, I'm going to need to be at my absolute best to get there. But what
Yeah.
it means is that everything else before then is all of a sudden easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because your mind is already going, well, when I've got this platform that's, absolutely crushing it, da da da. So therefore, you know, taking the platform to that next level is very achievable.
Yeah.
Taking it to, having national events, that becomes already very simple. So I actually use it like in a method of, that whole method of utilizing stretch goals in order to be able to like actually achieve immediate goals very quickly.
Yeah. That's such a great idea. That's
Mm.
such a great idea and such
So
a good.
it's
Yeah.
actually make it. It's not just about dreaming big.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to attain these things in between, and that's how
Yeah.
I do it.
It kind of is a way of also taking a bit of the overwhelm out of it, because if we're constantly thinking, big and out there, to break it, I guess it's giving you, like you said, that tool to break it down into the smaller steps, and you
Mm.
just get to see this part rather than just the bigger part all the time.
Oh,
Sorry, Ruby,
absolutely.
having a little chat with us as well.
This is the joys of becoming a mum. You've got
Yeah.
your baby right there.
Yeah.
It was funny. Kylie had rung me the other day, and Ruby was there with the collar on, and I thought it was my cat in the car because I could hear the bell. I was like, it was
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. We know where she is if we can hear the patterns. So, so, but yeah, sorry, going back to what we were talking about, it's yeah, you've still got that big picture in mind, but that can be overwhelming to a lot of people. So to be able to break it down and say, let's just take one step at a time, it's much more achievable. You can do this kind of thing,
I really like, I feel like it's part of my mission to flip that though as well,
Yeah, yeah,
because the whole purpose of dreaming is it's a dream.
yeah,
And so dreaming is for free. There's no charge on dreaming.
yeah,
If you want to escape in your mind to be, I don't know, in the French Riviera on a $100 million boat or whatever,
yeah,
just do it. It
yeah,
doesn't, like, the whole purpose of dreaming is it's supposed to create that playfulness.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that it's something that I think people often try once or twice,
yes,
and they go, "Oh, I'm never going to have that," and then they actually feel down on themselves about the fact that they may not have achieved stuff that they want to have.
yeah,
But when you can switch it and you can really start using your imagination
yes, yeah.
as a creative tool, and you can use dreams to actually create a little bit of excitement in you.
Yes, yeah, yep,
And when you
yep,
can use those tools to create those flutters and those sensations,
yep.
then utilize that in other parts that need a little bit more fun brought to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I love
It's
that.
it's a practice. I think
Yeah,
of dreaming and imagination for me as like a muscle memory.
yeah,
And once you learn how to do it, you can tap into it at any stage.
yeah, yeah,
Just like if you were going to have a meditation practice, you
yeah,
need to keep showing up and you need to keep giving it a go.
yeah.
It doesn't come
I love
instantly.
that. Yeah, I love that. There's one thing that's dropping in for me though, and maybe might for others, is absolutely there's the possibility of dreaming and using your imagination. And generally what stops us is fear.
Mm.
Some
So
kind of fear. What's your relationship with fear like?
Oh, I have, look, I'm an Aries, so I'm all in. Like, I've got that fire in me.
I'm a Libra. I sit on the fence.
Oh, you're the opposite. My son's a Libra, so I know you well. Um, but one thing, there's an amazing podcast which is by Lisa Nichols, and
Yeah,
it's how to turn your fear into fuel.
yeah,
Right. And what it says is that when you notice that fear coming up, right? Because often underneath fear is the fear of not being good enough, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
generally, any
yeah,
scenario where you're like, oh, I'm, scared of making this change. I'm scared of, speaking on stage or whatever it
yeah,
is. If you go underneath, you go, oh, okay, it's because lives under there is like not being good enough,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But what if your fear is an indicator to say to you that you're not there yet?
Yeah.
What if it's a little flashlight to say, hey, you've got some learning to do?
Yeah.
So every time I feel that fear, for me, I go, oh, okay, why am I fearful of it? And I just like, the little finger going like that. I'm like, oh, where is that living?
Yeah.
Where is that living? What does it
Yeah.
mean? And then I tap inside and really go into it.
Yeah.
And then I go, what would I need to have or what would I need to learn? Because I'm an obsessed learner.
Yeah.
What would I need to learn in order for that fear to shift?
Yeah.
What would
Yeah.
I need to do in order for that fear to shift? So
Yeah.
if it's a speaking thing, right?
Yeah.
I love speaking, but I still get nervous. Like it's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
real. Nervous is the same feeling as excitement. I keep telling
Yeah.
myself.
Yep.
But it's
Yep.
like, oh, okay, well, then you need to practice more.
Yes. Yes.
And I just can feel
Yeah.
that little like, oh, okay. And it's like looking at doing some investment stuff. And it's like, oh, I feel fearful. It's like, because you don't know enough. Go study,
Yeah.
go
Okay.
learn. If you learn,
Yeah.
if you know stuff, then the fear disappears. It
I
moves.
love that. Yeah. I love that.
So for me, fear is always like um, I don't know, it feels like a little doorway from the universe going,
Yes.
oh, didn't you know? Didn't you know that you
Yes.
don't know that already?
Yes. Yes.
But that's
Oh,
but also as well, I think it's really good to be honest with yourself about what
yes.
fear is and not feeling good enough or
Yeah.
not feeling enough is not fear.
Yeah.
That is an emotion, it's a state of mind, and if it's a state of mind, you can change it.
Yeah. I love, I love that. I just love that. I mean, even just through talking with you over these last 6 months, you have actually helped me conquer a fear. And I remember the very first conversation we had, I said to you, have you done media training? Have you done this? Have you done this? And I asked you all these questions. You're like, Kylie, you don't need to do any of it. Just give it a go. Just start experimenting. And I thought, that's actually normally what I do. But for some reason, I put this massive emphasis on doing lives on social media, public speaking, doing this podcast, all of those sorts of things. I put all this emotion,
Yeah.
mental energy, which was not always positive around this particular type of experience. And then I named it fear. I was fearful of it. And when we were talking it through, I was like, hang on a sec, I can overcome this. I can do this. And so I just started kind of chipping away slowly. And now I'm like, actually, I really enjoyed this. I actually
Like,
really enjoyed this.
it's hilarious because when we'd spoken, Kylie's going, oh, I'm not sure about the lives. And I was like, you need to just do it. Just put that band-aid off and just do it. No
Yeah.
one's going to be watching anyway. Like
Yeah.
when it's the first one, you think that the whole world's watching, and then you're like, oh, no one watched. And then you
Yeah.
get disappointed about the fact that no one's watched. But anyway, and then you've just taken off. Like you've just, everything that you've been doing and putting together. I mean, you're such a natural anyway, Kylie. It's just, but I think it's,
Thank you.
we're often the thing that is in the way of
Yeah,
us getting to the next stages. And
absolutely.
that's that fear of thinking what other people would think of us.
Yeah, I was
It's
just about
something,
to ask that. Yeah.
well, something that I got taught, actually quite recently.
Yeah.
It was during my NLP course, but that rings so true and something that we faced in the business with the clothing business because we were so front facing with the
Yeah.
customer.
Yeah.
They're either for or against you.
Yes.
And there
Yes.
is actually no grey ground.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
someone's being a bit niggly, it's like, yeah, well, you're not for, I'm not for you, you're not for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why am I then judging myself based on someone that's clearly not for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think that when you come into a space and you allow yourself to not be perfect, because, especially with the introduction of AI,
Mm.
perfection means a robot, right?
Yes. Yes.
But actually, when you have a
Yes.
human who, I don't know, has the dog next to them or loses their train of thought, it's actually quite endearing. People go, "Oh,
Yes.
wow, you're human."
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. We're not perfect. We aren't.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. I love that because I think for me, I had to get over that. You're not, everyone is not always thinking about you. You're all thinking about yourself a lot, but everyone else is thinking about themselves. So, just get over it, And once I did that, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. This
It's the
is a
same in
thing now.
yoga. And I'll go along and you go, oh God, I wonder if someone saw me trip over or whatever. And then you look at everyone and they're so intently focused on themselves. I haven't noticed anything happening. They're worrying about their
Absolutely.
own body in their outfit, not my body.
Yes, yes. Oh, well, body positivity is something I'd love to get onto, but I do have one more question, which is kind of related to what we're talking about, and it's about building your tribe because I guess particularly when we do hit our midlives, we feel pretty, or some women feel quite lonely, and especially if you've gone through stages of leaving a business or leaving a relationship or leaving a job or whatever it might be, we feel like we're losing a lot. But the way that I see it is we're also opening up a space for new stuff to come in. And that includes a new tribe of people as well. Is that something that you've found? Like, has that shifted for you? And
Oh, it's shifted massively. I've
yeah,
gone just under 30 staff,
yeah,
a business partnership as well, and for anyone who's been in a business partnership, you're more than married, like,
yeah,
because you have every financial connection together as well.
yeah,
So, yeah, I've had a huge change and shift in
yeah,
friendships. And,
yeah,
I like to think of it as like a crew, right? Like you're all in a crew working together. But I've formed some of the deepest relationships that I
yeah,
think and those relationships had started prior to me leaving the business, but since
yeah,
leaving the business, I've had space for those relationships
yes,
to really flourish.
yeah, yeah,
And one of the things I love about working from home and having a bit of freedom is that I get the ability to connect with people that I would have never had time to connect with.
yeah, yeah,
But also as well, one thing that I think you've got to embrace though is bravery with making
yes,
new friends.
yeah, yeah,
Like I've got, I've had a few where I'm like, oh, I really want to be this person's friend, and it'll be someone I go to yoga with,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
like, how do I, and I start by sort of chatting to them, and then I'm
yeah,
like, oh, what do you do? Oh, do you want to catch up for a coffee?
yeah,
Like, and us
yeah,
actually going on friend dates, right? And really,
yeah,
but I think you got to put yourself out there, and I think that we can get really stuck in our relationships as well.
yes, yeah,
And it's actually for a lot of us, there's a time in which we need to create new friendships. And
yes,
one of the spaces, for anyone out there who is like really looking to make friends, one of the spaces that I've really enjoyed is on the creative aspect. But like I joined a writing group and I made
yeah,
some really wonderful friends through there.
yeah,
I've gone to random art classes.
yeah,
And I just put
yeah,
myself out there to talk to people.
yes,
And then
yes,
if they invite me to something, I say yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Really like giving those friendships time.
yeah,
And then and doing the reciprocal, inviting them to
yeah,
stuff. Like going, hey, there's some markets on. Do you want to meet in the weekend and go grab a coffee?
yeah,
And if they think you're weird, they're
no,
not your people.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Not your people, absolutely. I love that. Not your people. And I think that's been a massive learning that I've had is that you kind of find out who your friends are when
Yeah.
you go through changes in life. And that's totally cool. That's
Yeah,
totally okay. There's not a it's not bad, it's not good, it's just a
it is.
thing. But we label it good and bad and those sorts of things. But it's get over that and actually,
Well, I
yeah,
think it's because we hold so much emotional
yeah,
there's such an emotional hold with
yeah,
friendships and relationships again because
yeah,
if friendships and relationships break up,
yeah,
we our automatic as humans is to go to us not being enough,
yeah, yeah,
but it
yeah.
falls into that same trap and it's
Same.
like, well,
Yeah.
hold on a second, maybe that just is the time that it was meant to be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's that great saying that people are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and it literally is true. It really literally is. I remember my mum has always said to me, if by the end of your life you've got three best friends or three people in your inner circle, you're the luckiest person in the world.
That's so true.
And yeah, it's a fabulous thing. And I've always remembered that from, when I've grown up. She said it to me a number of times, and I'm pretty sure she said it to my brother as well. And, it's just something that, to keep in mind as we travel through life. And we don't have to have, you know, thousands of people around us to be happy. And yeah, it's just, yeah, no, it's such a beautiful thing. But what sort of been a bit of a game changer for you? I mean, there's been a lot, I know, and we've talked about a lot, but in your midlife, like when I was watching you, before I knew you, like we do now, and you were, Leina in your fashion label, you talked a lot about body positivity. And, I watched a different journey as you went on, this, heading into midlife and those sorts of things. What has been a bit of a game changer for you as you have entered into midlife? And is that still a passion of yours? And yeah,
The body positivity stuff never goes anywhere because it's part of all of us, right? Like I
yeah,
don't care what you look like, who you are. Every
yeah,
single one of us goes through that feeling of having poor relationships with our bodies at some
yeah,
stage. And once you can shift that and change that, it's like the doors open up.
yeah,
And for me, with the fashion label, the reason why I was so passionate about
yeah,
more women being able to access fashion is because it shouldn't be limited to a
yeah,
size range. And that was just like, I'm like, for me, I've had so much joy from fashion, and that feeling when you're going out, you're going anywhere, even if it's like out for coffee, and you just put on that outfit, right? And
yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
yeah, you look good, you look
yeah,
great, I feel
yeah,
amazing, this is
yeah,
it. That shouldn't be able to be only allowed for a small size range.
yeah,
So that's where my passion for that led from.
yeah. I love
And
that.
I'm
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely still so passionate about it. But
yeah,
one thing that I've really come to, and I think, it was happening while I had the label as well, but
yeah,
one thing that's kind of become even stronger for me than my relationship with my body is my relationship with my mind.
yeah, yeah.
And it's something that's become much stronger and stronger and
Yes,
stronger.
yes,
And,
yeah,
for me, the mind is the core structure of anything that we do. And
yes,
so I think from those life-changing magical moments, I was introduced to Tony Robbins years
yes,
ago
yeah,
in NLP Master, but I've been to a couple of his events, which are literally,
yeah,
actually, I've been to lots of online, lots of,
yeah,
you name it, I've done it.
yeah,
But I think once you understand and know the capabilities of our minds
yeah,
and how quickly you can change something and how much, your mind influences everything that you do,
yes,
for me, that's been a really magical part of
yeah,
in my 40s where it's not just about the clothes.
yeah,
It's no longer about that. It's deeper than that.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
clothes are an amazing tool.
yes,
So if you want to change your mood in a moment, you can put on some clothes and you can change your mood instantly.
yeah,
You don't need clothes to do that.
yeah, yeah,
And so for me last year, after I'd finished up at work and had time and was quickly cramming all that space,
yeah, yeah.
I did my NLP course and
Oh,
I did
cool.
it.
Yeah,
I went away for it and had 2 weeks intensive with that. And I was away on my own, and it's the first time I'd been away on my own in a really long time.
yeah,
And I just was like, oh, again, that unlearning thing. It's like everything
yes,
I thought I knew is just
yes,
now something completely different. And
yes,
now, yeah, I guess everything that I'm looking at with the lens is about, oh, how can I use my mind in that situation? How can I leverage my emotion, my state, my
yeah,
reaction in order to be able to feel great whenever I want to?
yes. I love that. I think yeah, you're so right, because it controls so much of us, but it's about allowing it to, or learning how you can use it for the good,
Yeah,
rather than, you know, I'm a massive overthinker.
yeah,
And I know my coach says to me, Kylie, get out of your head, get out of your head, get into your body. But it's that's
But can I tell you one thing that you're doing
Yeah,
there? This is a game changer for anyone who's wanting to get into mind activation stuff.
yeah,
You have to let go of saying I am.
yeah,
When you say I am a massive overthinker, you attach being massive overthinker to your identity. If you can
yes.
change that and say, I do massive
Oh, I love
overthinking
that.
on a regular basis,
Yeah,
well, if you do it, then you can stop it.
yes,
But
because it's an
I,
action, it's a
but it's
behavior.
an
Yeah,
action. But if it's an am, it's an ownership. So any
yes,
of that stuff that you go, I am, and you put something on the end of it,
yeah,
you own it.
yes,
I
yeah,
have hay fever all the time. Well,
yeah.
I'm saying I do hay fever, and then you can notice when you don't.
Yeah.
So
What about with,
that's
sorry.
that's the key thing. We like a
Yeah,
key starting point is understanding identity, and
yes,
if you can unwrap identity, then you can change anything.
yeah. Oh no, that's a little nugget of gold, everybody. That's great. I love that. I think um Ruby's just barking away. She approves what you're saying. um, yeah, I changing that language and the language that we use and how we talk about ourselves and
Yeah,
all of those sorts of things is just so incredibly important.
yeah.
It's just, I think a game changer for me.
I think any of that, and that
Um,
feeds into
changing.
the body positivity stuff
Yeah,
as well. Because it's
yeah,
like, I guess, and for me, with body positivity, it's not necessarily that. It's about loving you
yeah,
in whatever form that is.
yeah,
Because, like from the four agreements, right? It's like your best on any given day will be different.
yeah, yeah,
So it doesn't mean that you have to be absolutely on point all the time, but you have to try your best in each given moment. And
yeah,
sometimes your best won't be as good. But if you're constantly working towards, I love who I am,
yes,
it doesn't matter if it's body, it doesn't matter if it's sickness, it doesn't matter if it's poor behavior that you've done. But it's
yeah,
like if you're literally going, I love me, then
yeah,
everything else from there will start to
yeah.
evolve.
Oh, there's your piece of magic, just within that is if you can love yourself, so much flows from there.
Yeah.
So much flows from there. I remember once upon a time I really disliked who I was.
Yeah.
And you feel it, that's really sad to dislike yourself.
Do you know what's
Um,
interesting with that though? I wonder whether you disliked who you were or whether you disliked who you thought everyone else thought you were.
Bingo, it was the second. It
Yeah,
was the second.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Which
that's
then
coming out.
reflected on which impacted on the first. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's where
absolutely.
you start taking someone else's perception of you as your
Yeah,
identity,
yeah, yeah.
and your perception of what someone else thinks isn't even real.
Well, and it's also none of your business. Like they can think
Exactly.
whatever they want. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. But I
yeah.
think that's that comparison thing. And I think,
Yes.
as a business owner, and that goes into that dream big stuff, right? You've got to be able
Mm,
to detach from that comparison game of thinking,
mm,
oh, someone else is in a better spot. You don't know that.
yeah,
And it doesn't
yeah,
even matter. Like
yeah, yeah.
you're running your race.
Yes, yes. No, 100% true. 100% true. I have another question for you, and it's in relation to you being in your business. And we were talking a little bit earlier around you're a doer. You love to go, 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 and you love to achieve. And on one of the episodes a couple of weeks ago, we talked about people being on the hamster wheel, and sometimes you just feel like you're just running and running. Has that ever happened to you? And if it has, because you can apply this to being in a business or just having a job as well. What have you done to either get off the hamster wheel or slow it down even?
I have literally just I've literally just been in the hamster wheel. So
Yeah,
since I made it, it's 2 months now that I've owned the business.
yeah,
And what I did is that when I bought the business, I actually jumped straight back in as if I was back in my previous business
yeah,
in the same frenetic thing. And it was
Yeah.
like I picked up all the same bad habits again, like
Yeah.
waking up at, 4:30 in the morning. I'm an absolute morning person anyway, so I'm usually up at 5. But
Yeah.
waking up at 4:30 and jumping into socials, jumping into emails.
Yeah.
Like I had dropped my morning practice, which I've done, for so long now and had
Yeah.
put so much change into that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I was consumed in that really trying to see what other people were thinking of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a new business owner and going in with already a very established customer base,
Yes.
obsessed with thinking, what do they think of me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's been in the last week, and I have actually really had to stop and go, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I left, my previous company because I didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be working, in that intense sort of environment,
Yeah.
and wanted to be able to have those own choices. So it's actually required me literally in this week. So the timing of the question is
Yeah.
always. Um, but literally, I have put myself back into that mode of not going into socials or emails before 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
There is nothing that needs to happen before nine
Yeah.
o'clock.
Yeah.
And gone back into, I am very productive. Like I really
Yeah.
stick to a schedule to get things done.
Yeah.
But then the afternoon, the evening, I do not go on social media.
Yeah. Okay.
There is no need for me to be going on
Yeah.
to check what's happening
Yeah.
because it doesn't need to be addressed right
Yeah.
then. And I
Yeah.
actually think that if you can really try and have like a digital detachment
Yes.
first thing in the morning, and like me, I've got a super active brain, so I've changed that and I've gone back into, okay, cool, restarting my meditation and soft movement practice in the morning. And then if I want to feed my brain, I read an amazing book,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's not about business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that actually takes a lot of
Yes.
willpower,
Yeah. Yeah.
not jump into
Absolutely.
business stuff, and to go, if you're going to feed your mind at that time of the morning,
Yes.
feed it with spiritual,
Yeah.
mental growth,
Yeah.
evolution stuff,
Yeah.
not revenue stuff.
Yeah. Well, it also feeds into, I guess, society's definition of what busyness is, and this concept that busyness is actually a good thing when in fact it's actually not. And you shouldn't be wearing it as a badge of honor. And
Yeah.
but so many people, you might have a conversation with them and said, oh, how are you? Say, oh, I'm really busy.
Yeah.
That it just rolls off the tongue, and it's not actually something to wear as a badge of honor in my mind. It's like some of the stuff that you're saying you're doing in the morning actually sets you up to have a beautiful day and a less stressful one as well.
But also though as well, I think if you're naturally the person that's going to jump into being super productive and overactive, again, it's that muscle memory that you have to
Yeah.
build. You
Yeah.
you can't sustain that level of stress. Like
Yeah.
it's not good.
Yeah.
And I think again, with one of those things of that change in life and change in lifestyle,
Yeah.
it's like, a lot of health and body stuff has come up for me this week as
Yeah.
well. And it's like, yeah, because I want to be the healthy 60, 70-year-old.
Yes.
And if
Yes.
I want to be like that, then I've got to make changes now
Yeah. Yeah.
while it's easier.
Yes. Well, I heard on the news last night that they're looking at, or there's a idea out there to increase the pension age to 70 by the year 2050, which, this has been floating around for a while, but it's sort of come
Yeah.
up again in the media. And that means, though, we're going to be working longer. We're expected to be on, I guess, a lot longer. We're not retiring when we're 55 anymore, all those sorts of things. So we need to kind of start looking after ourselves if we haven't been a
Yep.
lot earlier in life. And yeah.
And there's a couple of
Yeah.
aspects there. It's not just mentally and emotionally, it's also financially.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
getting smarter about, like for any women out there who aren't in check with their finances, it's time.
Yeah.
Like, and it doesn't have to be fearful. If you're feeling fear, it means you've got to learn something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mention of money comes up that you go, oh, I don't know. Okay, well, you got some learning to do. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
open up something and start reading
Yeah.
about financial stuff because it's,
Yeah.
it's not just a physical and emotional thing. It is financial as well.
Yeah,
Setting
holistic.
yourself up.
Yeah, absolutely. I know my partner talks about that a lot. He's an accountant, and particularly since I moved from having, that steady income to, a business that, you know, sometimes you don't know when you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
He's very much around, we need to build the financial, viability and sustainability.
Oh God, I
Um,
love it.
and it's a whole new world for me though, because I was just used to getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden when you don't get that paycheck, you're like, okay, what am I going to do now?
Freedom that's involved with when you are 100% responsible for everything that shows
Yeah,
up, right?
yeah,
The good, the tricky, the uncomfortable, all of that is all up to you.
yeah,
But there's also such a high that you get
yeah,
from achieving things when you go, I've actually built that myself.
yeah,
That's pretty phenomenal.
yeah. I think for me that we talked about when you change your, make a massive change in your life, the roller coaster that you go on, that's exactly what's happened. Like you've got highs where you're just so proud of everything you've done, but then you hit those moments and you're like, what am I doing?
Again, though,
Seriously, Kylie, what am I doing?
I always think that those are those good reminders because
Yeah,
they come in usually when you need to learn something.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's like to me, I'm an obsessed learner. But
yeah,
as soon as I feel that deflation, I'm like, oh, what have you got to learn? What have you got to
yeah,
learn? Something's
yeah.
in here. What do you need to know?
Yeah, that is so good. I love that. And I agree. I'm always doing something, a course, a webinar, going to a speaker, or something like that. I learned all about grants last night for business. It was
Oh,
something,
awesome.
again, it's just something that I've never done before. And it's like, hey, this is really cool stuff to learn.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a lot of time, but again, it just is something that you can file away and bring back out when you need to. So yeah, I love learning as well. So I think definitely something we've got in common. But we've been chatting for a while now, and I know you've just been so generous in giving us your time. Can I ask you one last question around giving our listeners a little piece of advice? So when you hit your midlife years, or they hit their midlife years, or maybe they're already there, but they're feeling like something needs to be shaken up a bit,
Yeah.
what's the one piece of advice that you could give them that could make a big change for them?
I would say make change before change happens to you.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
quite often I think that what happens is that when you feel something inside of you, let's say if you're not happy at your job or whatever,
yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're made redundant
Yes,
or something happens and there's a change in department and that role doesn't look like what it's so if
yes,
you've got that calling to make change, you take charge.
yeah,
You take charge of the change
yeah,
because when you learn how to really embrace change and go notice in your body, notice in yourself when change needs to happen. And if you don't know what that change is, go look.
yeah, yeah,
Go look, read books, read
yeah.
blogs. Like, I've
Talk
got
to people.
talk
Yeah,
to people.
yeah,
Go to a women's circle. Like, do something different outside of your comfort zone.
yeah,
But I'm a big believer
yeah,
in
yeah,
making change before change happens
yeah,
to
yeah.
you, for you,
Me
however you
too.
want to look at it. But yeah, design your own life.
Yes,
And
yes.
and things can change at any age and will like the only thing in life that we know is constant is change.
Change. Yep, yep. That's very much a motto of mine, particularly in my coaching kind of space. And that's what I sort of say to my clients is, be ahead of the game, be ready for this.
Absolutely.
But also you don't have to know everything.
No.
And it doesn't have to be perfect, which goes back to a point that you mentioned earlier. You don't have to be the robot doing everything perfectly until you're ready, because if you wait till you're ready, you're never going to do it
Yeah,
probably.
and it doesn't have like I love big change. Like big
Yeah,
change is probably part of my soul,
yeah,
but it doesn't have to be big change.
yeah,
Change for one person can be at a
yeah,
very different level, and it
yeah,
may just mean taking that pottery class or whatever, and then all of a sudden decide, like finding out in the pottery class that you're actually amazing at painting because of the painting
Yes.
thing, it just
Yes.
opens doorways.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I love fantastic advice. Yeah, it's something that I live by as well. I tend to jump. Sometimes I take a bit of time to think about it and then jump, and sometimes I just jump. So, it does come, you still got to apply a little bit of risk,
Yes.
a focus on risk around that. But it's not the only focus to make. I think your point before is that happiness factor. We can't forget about the happiness factor. So, yeah. Thank you so much. I adore you and I have adored our chat. And I hope all of our listeners have loved it and have found all the little gold nuggets within this conversation, because there were plenty. But is there anything else that you wanted to say before we sort of signed off today at all?
No, but thank you to you, Kylie, as well. Like I've really loved our connection, and beyond this chat as well, we've obviously had numerous times where we've caught up, and you're such a special soul, and yeah, thank you, and I feel honored to be in your circle as well.
Oh, ditto, ditto. I think, yeah, right back at you. You're, yeah, you've been magical, and the advice, the feedback, the conversations that we've had has just been just so amazing. So thank
Oh,
you so
oh,
much.
thank
And I
you.
know all of your businesses that you've got in Made It. I'm just so lucky to have you at the helm, because
Oh.
what you're going to be able to give them is just amazing. So,
Well, and you know what? For anyone who is looking for unique, 100% Australian handmade gifts, go check out the creatives, because I
yeah,
think you'll be blown away with the treasures that are on there,
yeah,
which is madeit.com.au.
yeah,
And
yeah,
for anyone who wants a little bit of inspo, you can come check out my blog, and there's
yeah,
lots of video and articles in there that you can jump
yes.
into for a bit of inspo.
Absolutely subscribe to Lena's email. I get it each week. It's
Oh,
it's it's fantastic. So I love reading them. So thank
oh,
you.
awesome.
Thank you for sharing your gifts with us and with the world. Um, we appreciate it so much. To everyone, I hope you enjoyed this chat. We'll sign off for now. And remember, you are the magic. It's all within inside of you. So don't forget that. We'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Bye.
Kai. Bye.
Bye.